linear system to solve the word problem. Your heading for today is Chapter 3 Word Problems. Chapter 3 Word Problems, and I would definitely include today's date. Chapter 3 Word Problems, and be sure and include today's date. Before we look at this one problem, I want to remind you of a quote I gave you a couple of lessons back, okay? I said, however many variables you have, you need to have that many equations. If you have an x and a y you're solving for, then you need to have two equations. If you have an x and a y and a z, you need to have three equations. Another way to say this sentence here is how many equations, let me rephrase that, however many, that should be however, that would be a lot better. However many equations you have should match how many variables you have. So you can say it both ways. However many variables you have, you should have that many equations, or however many equations you have, you should have that many variables. Okay? Alright, now, this quote, stated two different ways, is very important to understand as we solve this word problem in your notes, and also as we solve the word problems in your homework. Okay? This quote is very important. So here we go. In your notes, I would make note that we're going to look at page 138, example number 1. So in your notes, I would actually write down page 138, example 1. That way you know where the problem comes from, and that way you don't have to stop and copy this entire thing down, okay? Now you're welcome to turn your books and watch how they solve it. You can listen to me, you can do both, whatever you prefer, okay? But I do want to say this, on the test, when we have these word problems, I am going to make it mandatory that you solve them by writing linear systems. I am not going to let you use trial and error, and here's why. I have a very good reason. My reason is trial and error works when you have problems that come out to exact whole numbers. However, when you have problems that don't come out to whole numbers, trial and error is not going to give you a very exact answer, but using linear systems will. Okay? Alright, now, here we go. Let's read this carefully and really take our time on this problem. You and several other people are helping your aunt move. At lunch, you volunteer to go out and buy sandwiches. You get 6 chicken sandwiches and 6 beef sandwiches for $30. Later in the afternoon, everyone is hungry again. So you go to the same shop, and this time you buy 4 chicken sandwiches and 8 beef sandwiches for $30.60. What's the price of each type of sandwich? Now, the first thing you want to do when you're solving a problem like this is write out your two unknowns and give them a name. Our unknowns are the price of each sandwich. So one unknown is what? Write it down. One unknown is the price of a chicken sandwich. The other unknown is the price, I'm going to use ditto marks here, price of beef sandwiches. So there's your two unknowns. We need to give them a name, okay? I think I'm going to use the variables C for chicken sandwiches, B for beef sandwiches. So when you see the letter C, it stands for the price of chicken sandwiches. And when you see the letter B in this problem, it stands for the price of beef sandwiches. Got it? Okay, now watch carefully next what I do. I realize, and that's why this quote is so important, I realize right here, however many variables you have, that many equations, I realize I have two unknowns. So I know I'm going to have to come up with, if I want to solve this, problem, I'm going to have to come up with 2 equations. Now I cannot promise you this is always the case, okay? But quite often when you see totals, in fact, I'm not going to say always, sometimes those are a big hint that one side's going to be equal to 30 and one side's going to be equal to 30/60. That's just something to think about. I'm not going to tell you that's always going to be the case, but that's something to keep in mind. Now, I have to come up with two equations. Two equations. So let's stop and think this through. For my first run to the restaurant, I had 6 chicken sandwiches. Now, this C is the price of a chicken sandwich. So if I take 6 and multiply it times the cost of my chicken sandwich, that's going to give me the total cost of all my chicken sandwiches. I also bought 6 beef sandwiches, right? So if I take 6 times B, now what's B? B is the cost or price of beef sandwiches. So if I take all of my beef sandwiches 6 and multiply it times the price, that's going to give me the total I spent on my beef sandwiches. So think about it. 6 times C gives me the total for my chicken sandwich, my total cost for my chicken sandwiches. 6 times B gives me my total cost for my beef sandwiches. If I add them together, how much did I spend on that first trip? $30. Think about it, guys. C is the cost of one chicken sandwich. Multiply that by 6 because I bought 6 of them, and that gives my total cost of chicken sandwiches. B stands for the cost of one chicken sandwich. If I multiply that by 6, because there were 6 beef sandwiches, that gives me the total cost of my beef sandwiches. Add them together, and that's my total cost that I spent. So I'm going to simplify this equation a little bit more. 6 times C is 6C. 6 times B is 6B, and it equals 30. Now that's one equation based on my word problem. That's awesome. There it is. Okay, now, can you guys on your own come up with the next equation? If you can, pause the video and do it. On your second, I'll give you a hint. On your second trip, you bought 4 chicken sandwiches, 8 beef sandwiches for a total cost of $30.60. If you think you can come up with the equation on your own, pause the video and work on it. If you feel like you need help from me, then keep listening. Here we go. I bought 4 chicken sandwiches. Now the cost of one chicken sandwich is C. So if I take the cost of one sandwich, chicken, and multiply it by 4, that gives me the total I spent on chicken sandwiches. Now, B is the cost of one beef sandwich. I bought 8 of those. So if I take 8 times the cost of one beef sandwich, that'll give me the total I spent on my beef sandwiches. Add those together, the total I spent on chicken sandwiches, the total I spent on beef sandwiches, add those two together, and that should give me a total expenditure of $30.60. $30.60. Now I'm going to simplify this a little bit. 4 times C is 4C, 8 times B is 8B, and it equals $30.60. So there's my second equation. I have 2 unknowns, so I need 2 equations. There they are. Now let's solve this. I'm going to get rid of all of this. We don't need any of that anymore. And here we go. Now the best way to solve this, in my opinion, is going to be, well, first of all, can I show you a little hint, a little tip, guys? Please let me show you a little tip that's really going to greatly help you in math class. You know how you can reduce fractions? Did you know you can reduce equations? Sure you can. The top equation, 6 goes into every term. So divide every term by 6 and you're left with C plus B equals 5. Isn't that a lot better than this thing here? Sure it is. So I divided every term by 6. Here, I think I can divide every term by 4 in the second equation. I think, I'm checking right now. Yes, I can. 4 goes into 4, 4 goes into 8, and 4 goes into 30/60. So if I divide everything by 4, I'm left with C. Take 8 divided by 4, I get 2B. 30/60 divided by 4 is 7.65. Now that makes the problem a lot easier. In fact, I can solve this now using linear combination. If if one of my c's was negative, then my c's would cancel out. So I'm going to multiply the top equation, or the bottom, it doesn't matter, by a negative 1. So when I do that, my top equation becomes negative c, negative b, negative 5. My bottom equation stays the same. Your c's cancel. Negative 1b, positive 2b, that's 1b. Negative 5 and positive 765 would be 265. Now don't forget what B stands for. B stands for the price of a beef sandwich. Now, how can I find the price of a chicken sandwich? Well, I'm glad you asked. All that I have to do is substitute 265 in for B. I can do it here or here. I'm going to use this top equation because it seems to be a lot easier to me with just a C and a B. So I'm going to use this equation just because I chose to, no certain reason. And so here we go. You can listen. You can put 265 in for this B, this B, this B, this B, or this one, and you'll get the right answer. It does not matter. Okay. I'm going to put it in right here. So C plus 265 equals 5. Bring the 265 over and make it a negative 265. And you're left with $2.35. $2.35. Okay. Now, the best way to write your final answer, to be honest with you, would be like this right here. You want to be very classy, very professional, very sharp, so you would not leave your answer B and C. You would say, price of chicken sandwich is $2.35. Because C equals $2.35. C stood for price of chicken sandwich. Price of beef sandwich is $2.65. And you know what? You're finished. By the way, what's a great way to check this problem? Well, go back to your first scenario. Your first scenario, you brought 6 beef, 6 chicken, and it cost you $30. So take 6 times this, 6 times this, add it together, and you should get 30. And then your second scenario was 4 chicken and 8 beef for $30.60. So take 4 times 235, 8 times 265, add those two numbers together, and you should get 3060. Okay? So guys, remember on a test or a quiz, I am going to make you solve these by writing linear equations, not trial and error. Also remember, however many unknowns you have, that's how many variables, or how many variables you have, that's how many equations you're going to have to write. Okay? Now, I've given you some homework to work on. Let's jump into that, and hope this video's been helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call or email.